You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those I feel who are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry. And this is all to provide you with education and inspiration. And I want to mention last week's episode, if you missed it, it was with Annie Lee, principal planner of Daughter of Design. And today's guest is Hugh Howser. Hugh is known as Nashville's go-to expert for events and weddings for A-list celebrities that include actress Nicole Kidman and country superstars Wynonna, Reba McEntire, Jake Owen, George Strait, Martina McBride, Kenny Rogers, and more. Hugh has been featured across the country on CMT, ABC TV, People Magazine, InStyle Magazine, USA Today, and Brides, offering his unique, fun approach as a lifestyle expert with his trademark style and sense of humor. Enjoy this conversation with Hugh Howser. Hey, Hugh, first of all, I don't know if my listeners of The Wedding Biz know that I also have another podcast called The Music Makers, in which I interviewed the very big-time record producer Mark Wright, who introduced us. How do you know Mark?
Well, it's a crazy story, but if you live in Nashville, you sort of know everyone and you sort of go to high school with everyone. It used to be a small town. Now everyone in the free world is moving here, but it was a really small, intimate town. And the people I went to high school with were typically in the music business. So I grew up with all sorts of country music stars and music business makers and moguls and power brokers and everything. And Mark Wright's kids and I all grew up together. We went to church together and we went to high school together. And then I ended up doing his kids' weddings.
Oh, wow. Well, didn't you go to Belmont University in Nashville for music business management? Wasn't that your original career path?
No. I triple majored. And I did not go I went for theater and drama, business management, and broadcasting.
Oh, interesting. What is it that you wanted to do at that time when you were in college?
Absolutely no idea. Just wanted to be a celebrity. I don't really know what I want to do. I knew that and then I worked in local news, and then I worked on a daytime talk show here forever. And then my internship ended and I still stayed and they didn't tell me, and I didn't tell them. I just kept coming back to work. Even though I was done, my term was done, and there was another student coming in to take my place. I was furious. And I I stayed for months afterwards. And then I sold pharmaceuticals. And then I came back into, started doing events within the pharmaceutical business. My sister got married and hired a wedding planner. And then I shadowed that wedding planner and then started my own business.
When I read up on you, I saw something about when you were a kid, when you were a boy, that your grandmother, threw amazing parties. Is that right? And that maybe do you think that's where, obviously that must be where your passion started with all this? Yes.
One of my earliest memories is I think I was born next to a rack of martini glasses. I remember these big parties in her backyard with these tents. And I specifically, and this is crazy, and maybe it is because it's what I do every other weekend, but I remember vendors and rental companies and people coming in and out of her driveway, and just the overall feel of a party before a party is exciting to me. I love every aspect of it, but just the feel of a party, even before, even deconstructed, is fabulous to me. I just love the fact that we're about to have a party and it's all going to come together and blah, blah, blah. That's sort of one of my earliest memories. So yes, I was very, very, very impressionable, especially by grandparents. But I think all gay people are sort of coddled by their grandmothers, and mine sort of was epic beyond belief. Her hair was like the size of a chandelier. I don't even. So I was very much in awe of Southern hospitality and Southern parties. So I was sort of just handed those tools.
Well, and yet you went into pharmaceutical for events. That's pretty different than the glamorous kind of weddings and stuff like that.
Yeah, nothing like penicillin, to get you going. It's even funnier. So I just did it because in the summers I had worked in the summers, I had worked for a pharmaceutical company because my father was their attorney. And so I just worked there in the summers, and I became friends with the whole office staff, which if you watch my Instagrams, you'll know that I'm obsessed with offices and secretaries and receptionists and the whole inner workings of an office, which is a whole nother therapy session, Andy. But I worked there. So anyway, I got a job, a big job there, and then started selling pharmaceuticals and ancillaries, which is medical supplies through. And I was on the kidney dialysis side. I mean, how boring. And so, but I was saving lives in my own little way, and I loved it. And then back then, like the music business, used to celebrate goals and sales, and so they had these big parties. And so I would orchestrate the parties. And for that big company, they had these big budgets, and you were able to think outside the box. And everyone wore khakis and a pullover and were very straight laced. So I must have looked like Liberace to them. I don't know. I don't know. I can't, looking back at it, I feel like, how in the world they even have a conversation with me?
That's funny.
So I took over that whole creative side and made the parties fabulous. Then the FDA cut all that, and it's all different. Remember how pharmaceutical reps used to take lunch to doctors and all that sort of stuff?
Listen, it used to be crazy. Well, I used to do those incentive programs in the pharmaceutical industry for events, and they would spend a ton of money and just go all out.
And I even thought at one time, I was like, I could start a business, and I could just do these events just for the pharmaceutical companies, and then that would really be it. Well, hence my sister gets married, and she hires a planner. I know nothing about event planning, still don't. And I knew nothing about it then. And I shadowed her. And then she said, if one more person in Nashville tells me I should hire you, blah, 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 I'm going to scream. So that's how it happened. I quit my job that following Tuesday. I just quit the job completely and started working on my sister's wedding.
Oh, wow. That was your first one, you're saying? The first wedding was your sister's?
I didn't do it. I was just learning.
Yeah. Gotcha.
My first wedding turned into be 4 weddings. My very first wedding of all time. They got divorced, then remarried, then that person got divorced, then remarried. So I got 4 weddings out of 1. So I'm all about divorce. I love it.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting, Hugh. I was just thinking how I don't see any articles. Maybe I just missed them in like bridal magazines about second-time weddings. I mean, I think that's obviously, it's an industry, and it's going to get bigger and bigger with the divorce rate going up. I'm surprised.
Especially the pandemic. I don't know how we're not all, again, maybe that's why we're all so busy. Everyone hates each other, and then they're starting over. But being trapped at home will kill anyone. Second weddings sometimes are even bigger than the first. So don't knock them.
Well, I'd like to ask you, in terms of your process with a client, like how it is that you go through from the time you meet them to whatever leads to you getting your vision, and then starting to manifest that through their weddings. Can you tell me something about the general process, how that works for you, how that goes for you?
Yes, I sort of have a sixth sense. It's a weird thing that I have. I can meet a client for, I don't even know, less than 15 minutes, and I already know exactly what their wedding's going to look like.
That's interesting. And it's not necessarily anything they say. What is it? Just everything, their mannerisms, what they look like. And
also the trends of the world, and also like where they're headed and which weddings they have been to and what their taste level is. And they usually, honestly, I sound like I'm some sort of psychic, but they'll say like a trigger word, and then I'll know. I'm like, well, you would love umbrellas hanging upside down at your wedding and your whole ceiling covered in umbrellas. Or you would love clouds. You want your whole wedding to be ethereal, and you want to feel like you're in heaven. Your whole wedding should be green. Your entire wedding should be solid green. You can't stand any other color. So I listen. Well, first of all, the secret of this business, which not a lot of people know, because there's a lot of egos in this business and a lot of very what we're going to do today. And, a lot of wedding planners are so obsessed with their clients, they sort of become part of the client, whereas I'm sort of embracing the client. And the secret of this business is really listening. So there's so much more listening that goes on than there is talking, because I'm really just doing what they want. Like I could go out and paint a barn purple and they would hate it. I have to be a good steward of their taste, of their budget, and then go for it. So I'm lucky though, because I have this weird sixth sense where I can communicate with him. Also, I'm funny, so I make the whole process easy. So I cut through all that stress and negativity that starts off at the beginning, because most of our clients come to us and listen, they're prepped. They already know what they're in for money wise. If they're not, they find out very quickly, and it goes really fast. We tell them in the first meeting it's very expensive and you spend it fast. It happens like in minutes. It's gone.
Yeah,
because it's just gone. And so we try to explain that. Now, my area, of course, always gets cut, and that's design, because I'm sort of a variable and I'm based on guest count and all that sort of stuff. So I always make all those remarks, you can cut me, and all that, because you don't have to have $300,000 worth of flowers, things like that.
Well, can you give an example or two of maybe a favorite wedding that pops into your mind when I say that? Just the story about how it came to be and how you got to the point of what it is that you saw, and then a description, if you can put in words, how you created it for them.
Well, that's really almost any wedding, really. They all stand out. But I tell you what my favorite is, when they come to you and they have no idea and they just want direction and they just want a really pretty wedding. That's sort of my sweet spot. So when that all falls in line, there is zero stress, because I'm really proving to them how amazing it's going to be. So that's really my favorite. There are thousands of weddings that I bring out people's personality. There's always one little element to their wedding where I bring their personality in, whether it's a bar, whether it's a cocktail, whether it's whatever, but somehow I bring in their own personality and sneak it in a nondescript way. But to answer your question, all of my weddings are unique and different. If you look at our Instagram, you can see they're all so different. But there's nothing better than having carte blanche. So if someone comes to you and says, I don't really care, just handle it, I just don't like the color red, then it's the easiest wedding in your life planning. It's the easiest planning process ever, because there's no expectations except up. It can only get better.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Instagram right now. I mean, I saw it earlier as well as I prepared, and it's just stunning. I mean, there's an elegance, but there's there's colors that are combined that I don't typically see, with other designs, that's one of the things that stands out to me. And obviously the lighting too, but the color palette seems really interesting.
Right. And at the end of the day, look, I am still friends with almost I'm friends with all of them, but I still keep in contact with almost every bride. And I can't even tell you I don't even know. I must have done thousands of weddings by now. And so I can't even keep up. But I mean, I keep up with them through everything. And people will still send me jokes, like things that I said during it.
Yeah.
Like there's a wedding I'll never forget 100 years ago where these napkins look like a tweed jacket. And I screamed out, I worship a tweed. And they'll just send me a text in the middle of the day. I haven't talked to them in 8 years. They'll send me a text and say, worship a tweed. And I'll still have them saved in my phone. And I remember that to that minute. So the fact that they still remember all that stuff, that is so rewarding to me. That's better than getting paid.
Well, I've talked to planners and designers in terms of how they get their inspiration. Some of them talk about taking trips. There's one guy, he goes off for 6 weeks at a time to Italy and Paris and different places and just takes tons of pictures. And then there's others who, tell me about how movies are really inspiring. Is there any particular places of inspiration where you kind of, do your research and get your ideas and spark your creativity is what I'm asking.
That's exactly it. Usually shopping, usually in stores, and that's usually out of town, because I usually do lots of shopping when I'm out of town. My home is very eclectic. My life is very eclectic. My house looks like Ethel Kennedy lives in it, and I'm as tan as her. But
oh no,
I'm very old in my personal taste, so I do need some hipness. I rely on. We have young employees that really inspire me, and then that's really what happens. I have got some young girls. I mean, look, I don't know what all the cool stuff is. I mean, everything is so sparse now, and I'm the farthest thing from sparse you've ever seen in your life. So, and I feel my name claim to fame, I guess, is that I like lots of stuff. There's a planner in town who came up to me one night at a dinner and said, I admire you, just came right up to my table. And she's very talented and does gorgeous stuff, but all of her stuff is very similar and has a very similar stated look. And she said, I admire you so much. I don't know how you pull the trigger on some of that stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't know how you decorate with walnuts, and I don't, and 2 little walnuts and 3 palm leaves, and then that's done. And I'm like, I just think you should, expand on that a little. But everybody has their own taste level, and that's what's that those brides are for that person. There's a bride for that person.
I want to be sure you know the wonderful news of our latest show, Stop and Smell the Roses, with acclaimed lifestyle and event design expert Preston Bailey. Not only will he share the secrets, tools, and technologies behind his extraordinary ability to create a theatrical environment out of any space, you will also discover more about the man behind the magic. Preston will reveal how his focus on personal growth has been the root of his professional success, and you'll have the opportunity for him to answer your questions along the way. Plus, Preston will be inviting onto the show many of the star celebrities he has worked with in the past, so you don't want to miss a single episode. We also have another great show on the Wedding Biz Network, The Business of Being Creative, with host Sean Lowe. Since debuting, his show has really taken off, and he's continuing to bring you the creative business advice he's shared with accomplished industry notables. Be sure to take advantage of Sean's talkback opportunity by recording questions and comments from right there in each episode's show notes. So, if you are a creative who is turning your craft into a business or want to take it to another level, head to theweddingbiznetwork.com and take a listen to Stop and Smell the Roses with Preston Bailey and The Business of Being Creative with Sean Lowe. That's theweddingbiznetwork.com. What about in terms of the weddings you've done you've done a lot of celebrities, especially in the country music industry. Do you feel a different kind of pressure, or do you feel pressure for that? Any anxiety or fear? How do you deal with that level of wedding?
I don't at all. And, most of the time you're working with assistants and management, things like that. So it's more of step and fetch. So, but they're just like any wedding. I treat them just like any wedding. So, and they don't necessarily guarantee business. They give you some notoriety. It just happens to be that the bride and groom, everybody knows their name. That's really the only difference. I still give them a beautiful product and try to make it as memorable as possible.
What about challenges that you face? We all face something in every kind of event, whether it's a wedding or not. Do you have any really wild, over-the-top stories of a challenge and how it is that you dealt with it?
Yes. Mostly our challenges are weather related, which is totally out of our control. But weather is a huge issue. Every planner will tell you that. It's a complete nightmare, whether it's even just wind. Wind can ruin everything. But those things you prepare your client for in the very first meeting. So we tell them, if you can't handle weather, then you can't have an outdoor wedding. If that's one of the very first things my business partner says to them. How do you feel about weather? Because there's no predictability. Especially we live in this cereal bowl in Tennessee, this plateau that's down, a reverse plateau. We're in the middle of it. And so we get every ounce of rain, tornado, you can name it. So weather is our biggest issue. I've had tents freeze before in March and collapse.
Oh my God.
Completely collapse. And then there's a way to fix that though. I've had a disgruntled client burn a cigarette through a linen before. Not disgruntled at me, fighting with the family, which is also another issue. Another stress thing is there's all kinds of family dynamics. And so you've got families fighting with each other, divorces, all that sort of stuff. We've got to manage all that. Again, the secret to my success is the humor in all of that. So I sort of make everyone laugh. Kate, my business partner, is hysterical in her own right because she's very serious and she's like the school principal and she's trying to find me all the time. I run around town all day, placing orders, and she's like, I need these invoices and no one can find me. And I'm on a rooftop, flirting with a workman or something. I don't even know. We always talk about how our job is to fix things. So that way people don't really, know the stress at all. And she laughs because she'll say to me, I've never seen you work so hard for a laugh. Because I've had some poker face families before that are very serious, That's really not, weddings really are not for those people. Those kind of people, anyone that has that kind of personality, they really just need to go to a all-inclusive resort and and fill out a comment card. They're not going to enjoy it no matter what. So, I've even let people go, like, if I cannot communicate with them or we have a problem, like they're not funny, they don't have a personality, they don't understand humor, not just my humor, just overall, I'll say, you know what, this is not for you. And I'll usually say this statement, which kills people. I'm like, it's just not who you are. This is not who you are. This is not for you. You were not meant to enjoy a wedding. And this is just not your thing. So those are some stressful situations, but typically I can get out of it with a little bit of humor. And then thank God for Kate, because she handles all the bills. I tell everyone in the world, it's like a marriage. She pays the bills and I decorate.
Well, let's go with that for a minute. Obviously, it's so hard for a creative person to also have their business together. And you've got a successful company, and so you've got the business aspect covered. Whereas I hear you being more the creative side. Is it very separate where Kate handles the business, you handle the creative, or is there overlap? How do you all partner together to make this happen?
No, that's the beauty of the entire business, is because we don't overlap at all. So she doesn't even know the colors of the linens until she walks in. Now, if she looked at the invoice, she could tell some things. And I do prepare these big presentations. So and I always send them to her, because at some point, like if she's on a conference call or something, I'm not on the budget calls sometimes, because I'm usually hiding in the corner. But she's needs to know, like if they'll say, well, he had picked out an orange cloth, but we liked yellow. And then she has a design deck to look at, just so she knows what they're even talking about. But I think that's the complete secret to our business, is that we are two different brains. And so we don't really ever overlap. When we do overlap, that's when the problem comes. And when I say problem, meaning like she's waiting on me to send her an invoice. That's really the only negative. I don't think in our entire business together we've ever had a fight, ever, an argument.
Did you start your event business with her as a partner, or did you?
I did not. And you'll love this, Mr. Music. And that's part of my stand-up routine, as my whole career is just a Scud missile. And
by the way, you were a stand-up comedian. We're going to have to talk about that too. But
it's exhausting. I've got to do one tonight, and I could vomit in a corner. It's a whole nother set of diarrhea. Okay, so between event planning and comedian, am I just trying to kill myself? It's absolutely unbelievable. So, okay, so I started my company. So funny, actually. Mark Wright is really great friends with this person, and she was a big manager and publisher in the music business named Anita Hogan, and she sounds like the HR director in Monsters Inc. She talks like this, and she's fabulous. And I loved her forever. This is not going to come as a surprise to you, but I was a huge, and still am, a Bette Midler fan.
Okay, not surprised.
Which is very weird. When you come out of the closet, you get a Xanax prescription and a Bette Midler CD.
Right.
That's really what happens. And that's the sort of the roadmap of our life. She sort of taught me everything I know. So I was a huge fan of hers. And I remember as a child, Anita Hogan, my former business partner, her husband was a big songwriter. He wrote a lot of big hits for Don Williams and Martina McBride and a bunch of hits. And he passed away, unfortunately. But he had a connection with Bette Midler because she redid some songs. And I remembered as a child in high school, I was probably 14, 15. I remember Anita having this connection with Bette Midler. And so I used to not even be able to look Anita Hogan in the eye. I was so nervous. And so 100 years pass by, I guess. I go through college and everything. And I get this call from International Artist Management, which was Anita Hogan's big company with another manager. And they managed everyone. She worked with Waylon Jennings, Crystal Gale, Diamond Rio, Mark Wills, Daryl Worley. They managed all kinds of country artists. And so I got a call from her assistant, and I stopped dead in my tracks. I remember I was pumping gas. I got the call. And then I went to lunch with a friend. I was like, I've really broken into the music industry. And I am planning all these events for the music industry. I'm slammed. Lying out of my mouth. Just awful. And so I hadn't even met with Anita. I meet with her. She's very intimidating. I was so nervous to meet with her. And then we started the company. She didn't know what she was going to do. She had retired from the music business. I was devastated because I thought we were going to have all these connections. And she had sold her company. And she said, if I can get Waylon Jennings across Europe, I can get a bride down the aisle.
Right.
And so that's how it all began. And she invested in me, and we created this whole business model. And then Kate Steele bought her out. Anita trained her, and then Kate put her own spin on it, more of a youthful spin on it. All the technology now, it's all crazy. It's so different than when we first started. I mean, it was $100 a person when we started planning weddings, and there was nothing rent back then. There was no it was just the whole game has changed. It's a whole different world now. Now you can build houses and put people in them, basically.
Yeah. Well, what's the hardest part, Hugh, about what you do? I mean, what do you still struggle with as a creative in this industry?
Well, right now, it's supply and demand right now is a big issue. And everything seems to be $10,000 more than it was last year. Everything's a fortune now. We all talk about it. I guess that's a part of not being able to get things. What I struggle with now is there's so much more. There's so much more now. So the possibilities are endless. So I really, really, really have to work hard now to make things exciting for people. So that's the hardest part of my job right now, because it's all been done. So much is, so much more. I mean, there's so much more to do, but it keeps you on your toes. So I think the hardest part is probably coming up with new, fresh ideas. It's we're reinventing the wheel every day. We always have. That's what event planners do.
But you've done this a long time. Do you ever feel, I went through this kind of recently. I'm still in it a little bit where part of me is a little bit bored. I've been doing this so damn long, and fortunately, I just got at the last minute this destination wedding in the Dominican Republic. It's for a big model. And, it's a whole wild thing. And, I have to admit, that's kind of getting me excited again, like the old days. And I don't need to have such over the top events to do. I'm in the music side of it, but creatively, I needed a challenge. And there's some certain things about this that's a challenge. It's getting me interested again. How do you go through that? Have you had ups and downs? You've been doing this a long time too.
Yeah. And then sometimes I'm like, how in the world are we our ages and we're just, here we are Saturday night watching a bride cut a cake, God, but that's the most important day of their life at that point. It's a huge monumental milestone of their life. So that's what keeps me going. Cause I'm like, they'll remember this the rest of their life. This is a huge day. Whereas for me, I'm like, oh, I'm not another one, but it's different for me. I don't know how, just straight planners don't get bored to tears, just pick up the phone, call a caterer, event planning career was built upon caterers saying they would do things and they never did. I think that's our entire industry is built upon. We needed subcontract management. And so, people saying they said they would do what they would do and they never did. And that's how planners came about. But, so it's a lot of babysitting, but I don't really get bored with it. I just think sometimes when I looking at Instagram, I'm like, I feel like I've been to that wedding. You know what I mean? So I know if there was just one more little edge to it that would make it a little bit different. And for instance, I don't need to see a big, beautiful dinner table. I know the tables are beautiful. Show me something really cool. Show me Aunt Becky doing the cha-cha slide in a navy pump. Show me that. I would love that. You know what I'm saying? I know your tables are gorgeous. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, so what, before we go, what are you looking forward to now? What's exciting for you?
I'm working on all sorts of things. Some things I can announce and some things I don't announce, because if I do announce, that means I got to do them. So I don't know. But I don't know. I just sort of reinvent myself all the time. I'm excited about everything. I've got a booked calendar solid of events. I've got comedy dates. I've got a little product line I'm working on. I've got all sorts of stuff going on. So I'm constantly excited. In fact, my old business partner used to say, the best part of Hugh Howser is how excitable he is. I get excited about anything. I'm happy anywhere I am, Andy. I could be in a field in Oklahoma and I would have a ball.
Yeah, no, I relate to that. Some people say to me, it's like you're a new soul, because everything to me is so interesting and fascinating. But it seems to me that the comedy side must really keep an exciting, the adrenaline going. For you to get up on a stage, are you doing a lot? Is a lot of your bits about the wedding industry? Do you go there?
It is, yes. And so I've spoken at Engage before the big summit. I've spoken at that and done a little. They wanted me to lighten the mood because of coming back from a pandemic, and they knew it would be very low and very, very, very gloomy. So they wanted some humor interspersed. So I just sort of made fun of all of us throughout, made fun of everything that we do and how stressful it is and how we're still doing it. And I sort of did all that. And then it was a good success. I mean, I've gotten all kinds of, I can even tell you, emails and sweet messages and DMs from all the people that were there. And that was great. It is a great adrenaline for me, and it is a creative side of me. So I'm really getting to do everything that I love. I mean, I don't want to be Dave Chappelle.
Right.
And I don't want to do comedy for 90 minutes, but I enjoy my 15 minutes. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's great. I wish I could have seen you at Engage. And I've been to several of them, and I know that, when people are just really real, I mean, that's what we want, especially in that environment, someone who's having fun.
Oh, I had girls coming up to me, crying, straddling me, telling me, I hope you've made me realize that, I'm not, they're all, when you go to Engage, it's so funny because everyone's on their phones the whole time because they're so stressed out about whatever, lie they just told. Like, I'm doing it right now.
Right.
I'm doing it right now. I'm on it right now. No problem. Your invitations are in the mail. That's my favorite. Your invitations are in the mail and they're still at the printer. But being able to give them that little glimmer of hope, I guess, or that little moment to realize that their life is not that stressful.
Yeah, right. Gosh, Hugh, well, thank you. I mean, I know this is just a snapshot into your life, but I love your work, and you just talking to you is so much fun. I mean, thanks for taking the time to do this.
Of course. I'm so honored you even asked me.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Hugh Howser. Check out his website, which is h3events.com. That's H and then spell out the word 3, events.com. On Instagram, you can find him at h3events and also at Hugh Howser. And be sure to check out the show notes for more information at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And be sure to follow The Wedding Biz at The Wedding Biz on Instagram and Facebook. And next week, we're going to have a revisit of my first interview with the well-known photographer, Christian Ott. We'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.